You are now listening to Monday Sound Off Randomness on the Monday Sound Off Randomness on the Creative Lips
Yes, guys. Hi. How are you doing? You are now listening to the Creative Lips podcast. Yes, guys. And I'm your host, Regina. You are listening to episode 105. Yes. Yes, guys. I'm back. Yes, I always take these little breaks. You know I do if you've been listening to me. If you've been following the Creative Lips podcast, all you active listeners and all you new listeners, I welcome you here. I welcome you here to this platform. And yo, come on, guys. Keep on rocking with me, just like you have been doing. And hey, just keep on listening on the other side. Yes, guys, I appreciate you all. I really do. I just got to keep on saying that. I really do. I love you all. I mean, because y'all genuinely love my podcast. And you love tuning in with me and, hearing what I have to say. I really appreciate this. I really do. And once again, y'all, you are rocking with the best. I consider myself the best. You could, you could, maybe you should, consider yourself the best. You know what I'm saying? I really do. I really think you should. Just like I said, you are listening to the Creative Lips podcast, and I'm your host, Regina. This is Monday Randomness Sound Off. And I talk just a little bit about random stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yes, I do. Yes, I get into a little bit, talking about different topics, the latest news, and just a little bit of stuff about myself. You know what I'm saying? Yes, I do. I get into it. You know what I'm saying? But however, I appreciate y'all tuning in with me, rocking with a sister, and our continuing support. As this year winds down, we're getting into, almost 2024. Yes. Are you prepared for the new year? Or are you just going to just hang back and just reflect what this year has brought you? Or what it has taught you. That's what I'm doing. Every year I always reflect on what it has taught me, what it has shown me, and how much I've grown. I'm not one of the ones, I did an episode about it, about New Year's resolution. Talking about resolutions, do we care about those resolutions? Do you care about a New Year's resolution? There is still a lot of craziness. There's going to forever be a lot of craziness going on in this world. And, we have to be prepared for what's going on. And before I get into talking about some of those topics that I just just got finished talking about. It's going to be a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about today in this Monday Randomness Sound Off episode. So I like to start off my podcast by getting into words of encouragement. Yes, words of affirmations, words to get you through your day, your nighttime, or any time of the day you are listening to this episode. Just like all my active listeners and even the new listeners, I like to give this to you. I like to tell you that whatever you are faced with, whatever that is faced before you, only you know what you are going through in your life. Only you know what trials and tribulations, what things that is before you. Only you know what it is. But I'm here to tell you that there is a light at the end of that tunnel. Sometimes certain situations may need to be worked through. Sometimes certain situations may need help. And I always say, do not be afraid to ask for help, guys. Do not be afraid to ask for help. Don't be too embarrassed. Don't be too ashamed. Always seek help, whether it be your friends, a family member, or even a person that you might trust. And sometimes don't be afraid or ashamed to seek, therapy, to seek professional help too as well. Because sometimes that might be your way out of your situation, and that might, help you figure out what it is that you need to do to get to that next step so that you can open up that door and see that light at the end of your tunnel. Whatever valley and whatever path that you are going down, I'm here to assure you that that path will teach you. That path will help you grow stronger. And that path will help you, learn about yourself and learn what you need and not to do the next time. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes on the other side, sometimes we put ourselves in situations that, we put ourselves in those situations. Before you know it, it's too late and we're spiraling down. However, if you are one of those ones that, put yourself in a situation that that you had no business to be getting those, getting into that situation, you can get yourself out. You can. Sometimes things do not happen overnight. Now, I'm not telling you all of this to think that whatever it is, it can happen overnight. Sometimes it does. Sometimes when you get yourself involved or something that you're faced with, the next day it might work itself through. But if it doesn't, it will. And it only will happen if you want it to happen. And if you want to get yourself out of that situation or whatever things you are going through, you have to take the first step. So, I just wanted to say that to you guys. Say that to someone. Someone is listening to this episode and they need to hear those things, those words of encouragement so that it can get you through your day, your time. And, just like I said, whatever the time of the day you are listening to this episode, I just wanted to just tell you that, guys. All right. So now let's get into this Monday randomness sound off. Yes, guys. Yes, let's get into it. Just like I was saying, those resolutions this year, what has this year taught you guys? What has it shown you? Even though we're still in the beginning month of November, and I am on the East Coast. For you all new listeners or even active listeners who don't know that I am on the East Coast here. I reside in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on the East Coast, Yes, I'm a Philly girl. And no, I like sports, but people say, oh, she must be an Eagles fan or whatever. No. I'm not really a big sports person. You know what I'm saying? That's the neighborhood team. That's the city team. Good for them, but I'm not really into the sports. Not like I used to be. I used to love sports. I really did. Basketball was my thing. I was really into Allen Iverson. I love Allen Iverson when he was on the Sixers. That was my era. I'm telling you a little bit about my age, but actually I go back way back, further than that. You know what I'm saying? I go back to Irvin, oh my goodness. So, but however, guys, I really appreciate, you all, for listening to this episode. And I can just give gratitude, as my year winds down. I want to do a lot of new things, that I have been trying to do for the past, couple of years that I have been. Oh my goodness. I have been doing these episodes ever since 2020. That's when I embarked on my Creative Lips podcast journey. And I have been doing it strong, ever since then. And I am so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for this platform that I can share my voice to you all and talk to you all. And going on into beyond 2024, let's get into the resolution stuff. I don't like to do resolutions. I really don't like to talk about, what I'm going to stick with, what I'm going to do. For instance, when people have resolutions, they say, okay, I'm going to finally lose weight, or I'm going to finally eat right, or I'm going to finally yada, 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 yada. I don't do that, because it's not realistic. For some people, it may be realistic. Some people need a structure, so that they can maybe stick to it and just finally fulfill what they plan to do in their life, so that they can be a better person. But for me, I just like to plan stuff out. And when I plan it out, I tend to stick to it. It's not more so like a resolution type thing, like, okay, this is, you have to do this or else. I don't like to put pressure on myself, although I do work well under pressure. Yes, I do. I love a challenge. It's one thing that I love. But however, I like to plan stuff out and do it. And if it doesn't happen, if that plan doesn't work out to its fullness, I just, keep it moving and then try again the next time. That's how I do things in life, but if it's a goal and if it's something that I plan on doing, like for instance, I bought a house, that was a goal. It's like a bucket list type thing. It's a lot of things that I am trying to accomplish, a lot of things that I'm trying to do in my life, but I don't want to put pressure on it. Because, and for me, when I put pressure on it, it tends to feel like I'm rushing into it. And certain things that I really want to do in my life, I don't want to put pressure on it. I want it to work its way out the way that it needs to be worked out. And that's how I do certain things in my life. For instance, this podcast. When I planned out this podcast, I was really strategic about it, because it's like I said, I like a challenge. During the pandemic, when I first started this podcast, it was the pandemic. Everybody was home, and I was trying to figure out. I was laid off. I got let go from my job, and I was really trying to figure out what a sister was going to do. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to figure it out. And I'm very creative. I'm a singer-songwriter, for those who don't know. Gina Lock Soul. Yes, Gina Lock Soul. My music is everywhere on Spotify and iTunes. I have some music out, not as much as I want. But however, getting back to what I'm talking about, this podcast, when I started it, I started it off of a whim, because I really was looking at what was going on out there. I put my, feet on the ground, and then I was just listening and looking and, watching the internet and seeing what was going on. They had the verses and, they had so much stuff that was virtual because we were all shuttered. And I was just like, what can I do? There were people starting podcasts. It was a lot of people starting podcasts, but not as much as they are now. It's like so many of them darn things. You know what I'm saying? Oh my goodness. Everybody and their mama is doing a podcast. And not to downplay what everybody else is doing. Hey, if that's what you feel as though that you want to do, then do it. I also I had a podcast talking about how to start a podcast. I even talked about that too on Creative Bliss Podcast, on how I did it and how you can do it. I just thought it was my time to share to the world my voice. My voice. A lot of people say you have a nice speaking voice, Regina. Yes, I do. This is natural. I don't tweak my voice. I don't do anything. It's a lot of software out there that you can change, enhance, and, all kinds of things, with me, my experience going to the studio, singing and, and all kinds of stuff. No, this is my natural voice. When you meet me in person, I talk just like this. You know what I'm saying?
Pull up my select.
Yes, I do. Come on. This is Regina. This is me. Raw. You know what I mean? But however, I just wanted to share my voice to the world and, talk about what I love. My podcast focuses on the latest things, is what's going on out here in this world, and getting into that topic, what I want to talk about. It's the next topic I want to talk about, getting into this world. The latest news of what's going on, how sometimes people fall asleep and they are not in tune with what's going on in this world. Sometimes people get distracted of what's going on. What's the truth? What's really to what is remained to be seen of what's going on. Sometimes I put my tinfoil hat on. Yes, I do. And I am awake in certain things, and I see certain things. And the latest is what's going on is World War III. Yes, World War III. I'm going to say that again. I don't think y'all heard me. World War III. Yes. We are actually, we're getting word that we are going to be counteracting a World War III here in America, on America's soil. It's just very disheartening. We need to be preparing, to be ready for anything. We really need to prepare for what's going on, here, or what might happen here. Because there is word that they are ready to attack America on, just like I said, on America's soil. Not now see, when people think about World War III, they're thinking about, oh my God, they're gonna, bomb us. They're gonna, do terroristic things. Now, there is different ways that they can threaten America. It could be into several different forms. It doesn't have to just be, blowing us up. No, that's too easy. Let me tell you what they can do. They can really interfere with our infrastructure. When I say the infrastructure, it could be the electrical infrastructure, or it could be with a natural disaster with our water. Yes, with the water. They can interfere with the water. I remember it was a crisis that happened. It was actually earlier this year when Philadelphia water was tampered with. And everybody and their mama, you know what I'm saying, was running to the store trying to get bottles and cases of water. But imagine if that can happen all over the U.S. If there would be a terroristic threat all over the U.S. with them interfering with the water and even the electrical grid. And this is something that I think, this is my opinion, that we are blindsided by. We are blindsided by those things. Some Americans are blindsided by those things. These are certain topics that some people do not want to get, they don't want to get blacklisted, or they don't want to talk about. But, we really need to talk about it amongst ourselves, with our loved ones or friends, coworkers, whoever. We really need to talk about these things. Because it could happen. We could just wake up one day and there could be another national disaster, or another national threat. So are you prepared? Are you prepared? Are you one of the ones that buy extra water? Do you have a water filtration system? If you got the means and the money to do that, they have some that's not too expensive that you can get from off of Amazon or whatever. Are you prepared? Do you have an emergency kit just in case, something stashed away, just in case the electrical grid gets shut down? I know I am trying my best to, gather up my things as I can, as I go along. I know that's one thing that I am doing for myself and my family. And I'm kind of glad. I'm so happy that I bought a home, that I'm in this home, where this home is my home, and I can protect myself and my family by any means necessary. Are you one of the ones that want to protect your family by any means necessary? If you are, then hey, there you go. Do what's right. Do what you feel is right for your family and your loved ones. And, let's change the subject a little bit, because I don't want to get too serious and scare you all away, No, I don't. But however, those are some of the topics that, I tend to talk about with the people who I care about. And I care about all of you who listen to Creative Bliss Podcast. I do. I genuinely care about you all. And I would love, for you all to be in the know of what's going on. And for those who are listening to my episodes overseas, because you are, rocking with me overseas as well. And my hearts go out to all of you. I'm telling you, my heart, my prayers, everything goes out to you, that you will make it through whatever you are faced with, whatever's going on in your life, that you will make it through from anything that's trying to harm yourself or your family. That's why I tend to, stray away from, talking about certain latest topics that, a lot of people talk about. It's nothing wrong with talking about entertainment. That's what the other podcast focuses on. And I tend to focus on the real. That's why it's called Creative Lips Podcast, because I'm very creative and I have a lot to say. I just want to get my point across to you all so that, you can have a better and productive life. Be fruitful in that life, so you can say to yourself that I did it. I am accomplishing all the goals that I want to do in my life. I want to do all the things that I love to do. I want to create more music. I want to create, writing more books. I want to create everything. You want to create all those things in your life so that you can be the person who you want to be. And that's what my podcast focuses on. I want to just keep on continuing on giving you all that good content, and just like, our last topic I want to talk about 2024. Yes. As we get closer to 2024, yes, I'm going to be hopefully recording my podcast live so you can see my face. That's something that I've been trying to do, trying to find a space, trying to find the time, just trying to find it, shoot, I've been trying to find it, guys. I really have, trying to find it, because that's something that I really want to do. But however, I want to have a variety for you all, I want to have a variety. I want y'all to have a variety where you can just see me. And I'm also going to be more active on my Instagram, recording short videos while I'm live talking, so I'm going to be doing that as well. Tapping into that. I'm a little bit behind, but, I'm a little bit, ahead, shoot, hey. That's something that I'm going to be doing in 2024, guys. Yes, I am. And, guys, I don't want to keep you all too long. I really don't, because this episode can be long, because I have been away from you guys for some time. Yes, I have. I'm so sorry. But just like I said, you all have still been rocking with a sister from day one. Where's my day ones at? Yes, my day ones. I love you all. And come on, follow a sister. Follow me on Instagram at Creative Lips Podcast, guys. And also follow me on SoundCloud at Creative Lips Podcast. And I'm also on YouTube, Creative Lips Podcast, and on the X, formerly Twitter, Creative Lips Pod for now, until Elon Musk change it to a dating site, We'll see how that's going to work out. But guys, I appreciate you all. And once again, until next time.
You are now listening to episode 105 of the Creative